Welcome. This is going to be a deeper dive into Inception, the movie. And I've got Justin here to ask some questions so we can explore some of these richer, deeper themes that come through this highly complex movie as, again, a way to engage with almost this collective dream-like experience of the movie. So yeah, Justin, hey.
Hey, this is great. So why 5 levels? Why? To me, when I walked out of the movie, I was like, God, can we have it at like 2 or 3? So I couldn't keep track after the 3rd level. So
yeah,
what are your thoughts?
Well, Nolan's like famous for his kind of complexity, and he likes to weave. But I think as you slow down and go through the movie, if you start to see some of the things that are playing, it starts to make more sense. And I think the reason he goes through these levels is often when they like study meditators, there's actually these like levels of brain waves that happen. And I think in studies of dreamers as well, you've got the deep sleep, you've got the REM, and so I think he's playing with these like levels of consciousness that we go through. And I think for dramatic effect, he's playing with like dreams within dreams, but there's also something cool about that. Like if you've ever practiced like meditation, or especially meditation in connection with others, there's like, or you can discover so many subtle, deeper layers of experience. So in your like ordinary consciousness, like every day walking around, like sometimes you don't even know like some of the feelings and meanings you're putting onto experience. And as you see in the movie, as he goes through, like on the different levels, there's like different kinds of information about what's going on in him. And so if, you know, on a level lower, there's like, it seems like more action, and there's like his wife showing up and giving little messages. She even says in the beginning of the film, like, would I die if I jump off this bridge, or something like that. It's already like giving a symbol, like something's going on around death and grief, and this symbol of the feminine for him, Mal. And then it's only when he goes through the levels that actually what's really true starts to emerge and can be resolved. So I think there's something that Nolan's doing which is highly ambitious, but in some ways it's quite accurate. Like, I mean, this thing you said about, yeah, why 5 levels? Like, can't it be simpler? Well, how about your own psyche? Reading our own psyche is just as maybe more challenging than this movie. So yeah. Yeah,
well done. That explains it. The one thing that's popping up now for me too is no matter anytime they drop into this dream state, there's always, it's never just like, oh, we need to do this thing. There's always some threat happening. Am I correct that, and those are the projections?
Yeah. So, well, yeah, this is one of my favorite things. Like, even your question kind of wakens me up to a new aspect of the film, and this is what this is all about for me. Like, I don't think I've got like the ultimate interpretation, but I do seem to be able to like bring out themes that are cool. And then so
yeah, like anytime they go down, they're doing a thing, but then there's always like guys with guns after them. So I think in a lot of dreams, there's always like this sense of like, shit, I gotta move forward, or I gotta step through the marshmallows, you know.
Yeah, well, as you say that, I think if the film is actually about this like hero's movement towards awakened mind, or even like the whole of the team like moving towards this like omega point of coming home and a return to innocence and simple family, but not just like returning with like a real knowledge of what it is, or like a true wisdom of like how much it matters. So if you think of like that whole journey to that point, like they have to face like this background sense of threat, this difficult mission has to be accomplished, And I certainly recognize that from my own kind of spiritual journey and working with people that when you're like seeking and trying to discover like deeper layers and consciousness and dream reality, there's a way that there can be a sense of urgency and also like danger and vulnerability. And one way you could think of like as they go down and this like militarized, so basically in the film, if a person is aware that someone can come into their unconscious, into their dream in this special way, they can be trained to defend it. And actually, I think there are a lot of practices or therapeutic modalities or philosophies that are like that. They're trying to like make you aware of the way you can be influenced by others and having kind of defenses for it, or even like just naturally we have kind of defenses towards something that's like feels a threat to our consciousness. So the film's kind of symbolizing that. And then, yeah, this relationship to the subconscious, where there's all these people, but they say, yeah, they're just projections. So, like when they were killed, he's like, no, don't worry, it's not killing part of the psyche. It's actually just a projection. And in a sense, yeah, how much of our everyday reality with people, how much are we actually seeing and reacting to what's there, and how much is it actually like a mental projection that we haven't gone deep enough to see through yet.
Right. Like we create our reality, and we often we think there are threats in the real world against us.
And there's an amazing thing in the movie where he says, I think Aaron Agnew says to him like, "Why are they turning on us?" And he's like, "Well, when they think someone's messing with the dream, it's like they turn on you." And if you can actually see this like kind of on a deep level, like kind of a mystical kind of way of seeing reality, is that we're actually always in a dream. There's a way we're constructing what is, and it's like it's got a whole kind of worldview that we live inside of, and we're not actually aware of it. And then other people are in that as well. And so if someone's messing with that like constructed reality you have in any kind of way, it's like something wakens. And even like the people around you in your life, if you start to do something a bit different, they start to like come at you or like challenge you. So it's like any messing with that constructed nature of our reality kind of can create this reaction to the point where they come and kill you to try and like wake you up.
Yeah, or they get pissed at you, or like, because especially people who, get conscious or get healing or grow, mature, it causes like growing pains for other people, or they're just plain annoyed and they don't know what's happening.
Yeah,
interesting.
And if you've been like aware in your dreams, like you can have actually that's the like lucid dreaming. You can actually have a conversation with these like figures in your dream, and it's super interesting. And it's not what you imagine. Like if you know you're dreaming and you start becoming conscious, like some dream characters will talk to you, some will ignore you, some will say random stuff, and you just have no idea what's like going to unfold. So I think there's something cool in this movie where they're pointing to this relationship to the subconscious.
Mm. So you were just talking about lucid dreaming, yeah? That's wild. And with no substances.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you mentioned substances before. Like, there's a big part of this movie actually that to go into the dream they have a drug, a sedative, and there's a big thing about finding the right guy who knows about the sedatives, and then if they had it too strong, they ended up in limbo, which I want to talk about limbo in a bit because that's really interesting.
No, let's talk about it now.
Okay. Well, just to say on this, like, a lot of people enter altered states of consciousness through substances. So ayahuasca is super popular, but MDMA, LSD have been used, and mushrooms and iboga. It's like this is a tried and tested way of humans experience altered states of consciousness, dream-like realities. So it's interesting that the film, like to enter these dream states, was using this sedative way of people going in. I actually don't think that's actually, I think there are other technologies we can use that are more efficient and less potentially toxic if you use them a lot. But yeah, this is, I think, interesting part of the film, this pharmacology kind of.
So let's talk about the limbo. How do you...
saw that caught your attention.
What's it?
I saw that caught your attention, yeah.
Yeah, because that's scary, and like, you know, unpack the limbo for us, because I don't think they quite did that in the film.
Yeah, so in the film, what started to happen, like all kind of heroes' journeys, they've got this plan, they're going to go in, which if anyone's been on a kind of spiritual journey, they know the same thing. You think you're going one way and then suddenly it just gets more complex. They didn't realize there would be so many defenses and difficulties. But the problem with that, the fact that they didn't know that, like Arthur, the guy who should know all the things, he missed that detail. But the problem was Cobb was also hiding something. He was hiding this information that if you go heavier into sedation, there's more chance that if you get killed in the dream, which normally wakes you up, actually takes you right down to the bottom. And this bottom they call limbo. The interesting thing with this kind of limbo like realm, in some ways, in the film it's quite a scary place. Like it's like if you go there, like you're going to get lost forever. And it's often like in kind of mystical traditions and wisdom, there's this saying that mad men drown where mystics swim. And so my sense of this deep layer of the dream is actually the place where everything got resolved, actually, even though they kind of got there by, you know, mistakes. It's funny, like mistakes are often, you could say, like actually callings by the unconscious to come deeper. And actually Mao, through the movie, what you actually hear Cobb say is that actually Mao's trying to lure him down there. And there's this interesting thing where it seems like a sinister thing, but you could also say that Mao's actually part of his subconscious, calling to him to come and resolve what he hasn't resolved in himself. And then in that meeting, that final, that's where they resolve it. But then in the limbo, this sense that the things change, it's like the time is very expanded. So if you go into a very deep state of awareness or kind of therapeutic opening, it does feel like timeless. Like you can take, you know, easily be there for like an hour or two and speak very slowly, and suddenly there are things you realize about yourself that you had forgotten, or just suddenly become clear, deep beliefs about reality or feelings you had as a child. And so it's like this place is actually a very creative place, but there is this kind of like challenge about being in these deep states of consciousness, that it will reveal, you know, parts of yourself that you've got to be ready to face. I think that's why he says like you can get lost. I think people who go into spiritual journeys unprepared will, you know, do a lot of drugs or something like that, and they'll see something that they weren't ready for, and because they haven't practiced kind of stage by stage and like understood each level, they just suddenly like got this information that all the other levels are unresolved. Whereas you see in the movie, he had to resolve each layer. There was something on each layer they had to capture and link together, and it's only when that aligned that there was the resolution. But the resolutions, like the most important one, came at the bottom. And just the last thing on limbo, like, I think Jung talked about when he went into his unconscious at first, like he went deep in. He was an incredible, apparently, visionary. Like he could have, like almost like he could have dream experiences while awake. He could just imagine himself into them, I think. But when he first did that, he thought he was going insane. And that's because all this like deep symbology and this sense of, in this deeper reality, there's kind of more, you're more aware of the kind of creative aspect that we have as a subject, as a person, on the reality we create. And that's how the movie said, like they were building a city down there, built from their memories together, and they had this whole like idyllic fantasy of like this perfect being together. But because it was still not fully real, even though they had a lifetime of this like perfect kind of love together, there was something not right, something that wasn't real enough. So there was a calling to come back, but then it was split. Mal wanted to stay and Cobb wanted to go, and because he couldn't resolve that issue on that level, he shortcutted it with an untruth. He told an untruth to her, which ended up like really breeding in her. I think it something like, this isn't real, but it was like a partial truth that grew into something, that eventually led to her believing that even in the kind of normal, ordinary state, which led to her killing herself.
Right. Well, now I think it's appropriate to talk about the end shot, and that is essentially that little dreidel keeps spinning and would lead us to believe that the whole thing was a dream. I feel like a little cheated in that respect.
I got really touched by this ending when I was like re-looking at the film, and because also for me, like when I first watch it, I'm like, whoa, there was a lot in that, and I don't quite get the messages straight away. It takes them a while to come, and sometimes I have to kind of write and meditate on it. But this morning I got really touched by that ending in a way I hadn't before. So like when he resolves this like meeting with Mal, which he actually like finally like takes a stand, like he's not afraid to stay there and to fully see it through. So he even tells Aranagni, like, no, you've got to go, leave me here, even though she has the opportunity to like free him, but he knows he's not resolved, and he's like, and he also knows that Salto is also like an important thing to resolve. But he faces Mal, which is his own projection, and it's like he's finally able to like own that, like the mistake he made. He's finally able to say, look, I shortcutted, or I tried to do the best for us, but I can see that it wasn't good what I did. And he can finally like share that honestly, but then he can also own the part of him which I think he wasn't able to through the whole film. Then it's like, I've got to let you go. I've got to let go of this fantasy that we can live forever down here. And then in letting that go, it's like, it resolved the kind of tension or this looming fear that was always there. And then he could have his final meeting with Salto, which again was about choice. And it was like, and this is the whole thing through the movie, he's always running away from something, and finally it's like, no, I can choose, but the choice is faith. Choice is, can he believe that reality will meet him and honor, like it's this offer of freedom and of home, and he's got to actually surrender to that with Salto and them together, which ends up them waking up. So I'm getting to this ending part, and then it's amazing as they wake up, because as he awakens, it feels like this is like the most beautiful, because there's so many awakenings in the movie where people like, where am I, and they have to test whether they're real. In this one, the music is so beautiful, and like it's like at peace, like it's been resolved, and then they get so touched by the way they look at each other, like they've really helped each other to awaken together and to find this deeper freedom, and they know what they've done. They know how deep and how much courage it took, and so you see that between them. and then he gets through, which you don't know. He gets through this, like, he's even resolved, like, the world around him. And this is extremely deep. Like, if in the mystical journey there is this sense of, if you really come to terms with the deeper parts of yourself and you really awaken to, like, the reality, it's like the world around you will start to form into, like, harmony with your interior peace. Whereas in the beginning, he's still running and unresolved, and he's trying to escape, but he's also trapping Mel in. He's got her in a prison because he can't let go, but he's also, it's all like trapped in. But as soon as he lets go, it's almost like this symbol that the exterior suddenly also resolves, which is a very deep message, I think. But then finally, this, like, but what is the awakening? And I find this theme very popular in Western movies, is it's actually a coming home, and often it's about family and those closest to you, like realizing who they are and how important they are. So he comes home, and he's got his kind of mentor with him, who ironically was the one that taught him about this, going deeper into the psyche and the inner architecture.
The Michael Caine character.
Yeah, but he's also the one that kept saying to him, come back to reality, come back. So he was like a double, like he initiated him, but he also was like telling him about the journey home. And then as he gets in there, like watching it again, he's testing reality. But the beautiful thing that I think it actually shows you is that he does the thing, but he doesn't look at it. Whereas through the movie, you can see how anxious and how he's still not trusting reality. So he's like looking at it, and he's anxious and he's very defensive when people ask him about anything to do with his kind of unconscious or his dream life. But everyone's kind of poking at it, because reality will poke where you're unresolved continually, and you see him being poked all the time, but at the end he's resolved, so he doesn't even look. And actually it does wobble more than I remembered. So it's suggesting that this is the reality, but it leaves you in that question of, like, we never ultimately know what the deepest reality is. Like, there might always be more. But the other thing that was super interesting was when he grabs his son and his daughter, he actually asks them a question. So you're seeing this, like, there's still this question of what's reality going on, but actually it doesn't care anymore, or he's like resolved, and he knows where he wants to be, and so he collects them, and they're like super happy to see him, and there's this resolution of like innocence with the returning hero. But then he asks, what were you doing, or something, or the boy says, oh, Daddy, do you know what I've been constructing? And then he's like, oh yeah, what? And he says, I'm building a house on a cliff. And that's the first symbol you get on the beach. You see the kids and they're turned away, and then there's the house on the cliff, which is almost like one of the main symbols in the Limbo. So it's almost like his son is actually saying, like, Daddy, I'm like, almost this is his deep unconscious already, like, coming through the innocent child. But the wonderful bit is he's like, let me see. And it's like this true kind of father presence, or this like loving parent energy that he's now like liberated in him, where it's like, yeah, I'll see, like, you know, your consciousness, son, like, I'm here. So that's, yeah, it's kind of something I didn't get till this morning, actually.
And isn't it funny how how the little boy is holding the Limbo with such, you know, boisterous childlike.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because children are like unbelievable, like, you know, the way they draw pictures, and it's like intuitive, and like, you know, if there's a house where there's like conflict in it, often the child's like dreaming away, like or drawing things or showing like what's happening. But the difference is the child doesn't have like the developed, complex, like conscious mind to integrate like these deep kind of limbo symbols. But like you said, it doesn't matter at that age if you feel safe and protected. It's like you just express it, and there's like a joy at like what's inside you, and especially if your parent comes in and says, "Yeah, show me." So yeah, in the end, it's like that seems like the most beautiful, like almost like you can see this polarity between love and truth. So the truth part of the movie is like what's reality, and it's this complex thing, and like how, you know, can we incept an idea into someone, how best to do it, and they find a way to find the truth in him in a way which makes it stick, and a positive truth in Fisher. But there's also this question of love, and like, so it's like truth and love like kind of guiding each other to this like omega point in the movie, which is this love between the father and the child. And you can say internally for us, like when we feel our like true innocence, that we've been born into this existence, and like here we are, we don't know anything actually of why we're here, or like, but we can return to that child like, wow, like what is it? And but with that resolved adult consciousness, or the resolved kind of willing to see all the layers but not get lost, and like know which one you belong to. Or yeah,
that's great. I think it's a good place to end.
Cool.
Yeah, so thank you.
Cool, thank you.